Stakeholders in the judiciary process are reluctant to have children testify in court. Yet, sometimes, to ensure their protection and to make sure crimes committed against them do not go unpunished, children's testimony in court can't be avoided. Every year in Quebec, hundreds of children are called on to testify in a judicial hearing. A courtroom can often be a forbidding environment, but a large number of children are subjected to the rigors of testimony nonetheless. Many of these stakeholders in contact with child witnesses report situations where the child's court appearance has been a negative or even a traumatic experience. Concerned with preventing these negative experiences for underage witnesses, counselors at the Crime Victims Assistance Centers are constantly looking for ways to implement adaptive and efficient interventions for children, to support them as witnesses, and to help the courts hear what these children have to say. With the help of the CAVAC network and the support of Le Bureau d'aide aux victimes d'actes criminels of the Quebec Department of Justice, the Outaouais Crime Victims Assistance Center has developed this intervention program for underage witnesses. It draws on the CAVAC network's extended experience with victims and witnesses alike and builds upon research into best practices as reported in the scientific literature. The program aims to reduce the child's anxiety when appearing in court and to provide her with the tools to give suitable answers to the questions she'll be asked by the court. With an appropriate intervention, the child will be able to give an acceptable account of the events as she remembers them and will be less troubled by the experience. A major concern that was central to the development of this program was to avoid contamination of the child's testimony, which is why, when implementing the intervention, the facts of the case are never discussed with the child. From the very start of the process, the child's parent will be offered psychosocial support as a complement to the intervention for the underage witness. This support is necessary for the parent to take on her role as parent in a positive manner. This approach calls for two counselors so that the meetings with the parent and the child can take place at the same time. The intervention for the parent aims at helping her understand her child's reactions and the consequences in regard to the criminal act. It also allows the parent to express her feelings relative to the situation. The better the parent is at playing her supportive role, the more comfortable the child will be in her role as a witness. The intervention for the child aims at providing her with the necessary competencies for her role as a witness. The more the child feels competent, the better she'll be able to tell her story, and the more positive will be her experience in court. Obviously, these meetings are also meant to acquaint the child with the environment of the court, with its officers, and with its particular language. While on a tour of the courthouse, the child witness becomes familiar with the premises and thus should be more comfortable at her court appearance. The guide, along with this video, describes the full range of skill sets that are dealt with when implementing the intervention for the child. Either the child already possesses these skills because of her age and cognitive development, or they must be passed on through training exercises. Over the course of these meetings, using stories from her own experience, the child can practice answering effectively to questions that are similar to those which would normally be asked to her in court. Throughout the intervention process, with training activities and role-play exercises, the child will consolidate her skill set for her role as a witness. The counselor will ask the child to select stories from her personal experience as a basis for role-playing. Her last Christmas or the first time she fell off her bike, for example. Over the course of these exercises, the child will become adept at answering the counselor's increasingly complex questions, like the ones during interrogation or cross-examination. The more competent the child feels regarding court requirements, the greater her self-confidence and the better her testimony will be. At the same time, the lower her stress level will be. During meetings, the counselor will alternate between skill set learning and practice sessions and playtime. First and foremost, however, the counselor must respect the child's own pace. Teaching these skills must take place within a flexible and pleasant surrounding. The child's training exercises should be broken up with anxiety management and stress-reducing activities that the child will integrate in her toolkit. The child can then call upon these techniques at home or while waiting at the courthouse or even in court, whenever she feels the need. The goal of this program for underage witnesses is for the child to use these acquired skill sets at her appearance in court. They range from the ability to say she doesn't understand the attorney's question to the ability to identify and correct attorneys' factual errors, which might show up in their questions or in their suggestions. Basically, learning these abilities will allow the child to take her time when explaining to the court, in simple terms, what she remembers of the events of the case. Bringing supportive care and attention to court is a pivotal moment of this intervention program. While giving the child support is necessary, it is crucial to provide the parent with an adaptive and psychosocial intervention so that she can play the role of emotional stabilizer, being a rock for her child. Therefore, a second counselor dedicated to the parent is recommended. A calm and serene parent will be able to calm her child following her testimony. At their final meeting, the counselor and the child discuss her experience. The goal here is to allow the child to talk about her experience as a witness and to conclude her participation in the judicial process on a positive note. The message to be communicated is that no matter how the judge eventually rules, the child has accomplished a difficult task and that she's quite brave to have agreed to tell her story. Because judiciary practices are constantly evolving, this program for underage witnesses will also continue to evolve in order to meet ever more efficiently the needs of children who are confronted with the judicial system. In recent years, the CAVAC network has invested a lot of effort to adapt its practices to the needs of underage witnesses. This commitment to the welfare of vulnerable witnesses will continue in the coming years to make sure that intervention practices best suited to the situation are implemented. Obviously, this program dedicated to underage witnesses has limitations, which can only be modified by the judiciary system's officers. As such, timeframes for judicial procedures and the rules surrounding vulnerable witnesses' interrogation are major challenges that can only be resolved by political and legal decision-makers. Until these changes take place, thanks to this program for underage witnesses, children and their parents will at least receive support that is adapted to their specific needs relating to the child's appearance in court.